An interesting documentary of all Nigerian presidents. Nigeria, which became a federation in 1960, is a constitutional democracy with a president as the head of state. The winner of the election, which includes candidates from different political parties in Nigeria, is typically this president. In this video, we'll go through a list of every Nigerian president in chronological order, starting with the first. Make sure to click the subscribe button and the notification bell before we continue so you won't miss out on more incredible content like this. Without further ado, let's begin. The head of state and government of Nigeria is the president. He is the Grand Commander of the Federal Republic and the Army, Navy, and Air Forces Commander-in-Chief, GCFR. Ghana, Benin, Niger, Cameroon, and Chad all share a border with Nigeria, a nation in West Africa. One of the largest crude oil reserves in the world is found in this nation. On October 1st, 1960, the nation declared its independence from Great Britain, becoming the second nation in sub-Saharan Africa to do so. With a simple majority of the vote, the president and vice president are chosen. The president is eligible to run for a second term after serving a 4-year term. List of all Nigerian presidents and their notable achievements since independence. 1. Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, 1960 to 1963. He was born into the world as a commoner in the northern region of colonial Nigeria and had teacher training. In Bauchi State, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was born in December 1912. The title of Prime Minister has only ever been given to one person in Nigerian history, and that person is Balewa. On our list of all Nigerian presidents, he comes in first. In 1952, Balewa made his debut in the Nigerian government, first as the Minister of Works and then as the Minister of Transportation. He was chosen as Chief Minister in 1957, forming a coalition government with the Cameroons, the National Council for Nigeria, and the NPC. During Nigeria's period of transition from colonial to indigenous rule, he took on a significant position. His legacy was created through interethnic cooperation and conflict mediation in other African nations. After a long period of colonial rule, the British Crown finally ceded control to Nigeria. As the country's first prime minister, Sir Abubakar Tafawa ruled Nigeria alongside Queen Elizabeth II at the time, from 1960 to 1963. At this point, Nigeria became a republic. 2. President Nnamdi Azikiwe, 1963 to 1966. As soon as Nigeria became an independent republic, Azikiwe served as its first president. Born on January 16, 1904, Azikiwe. He is well known for advancing contemporary Nigerian and African nationalism. He is from Nui in Anambra State. He entered politics after having a successful publishing career, working with Sir Herbert Macaulay to found the National Council of Nigeria Citizens, NCNC, which later changed its name from the National Council of Nigeria and Cameroon, NCNC. President Azikiwe was chosen to serve in Nigeria's Legislative Council in 1947. He started leading the opposition to Obafemi Awolowo's administration in 1951. He was inaugurated as the nation's first native president in 1960. The 1963 Constitution, Nigeria's first constitution as a federal republic, was promulgated during his administration. He was in power for 3 years, from 1963 to 1966, before being overthrown by a military coup. At the University of Nigeria Teacher Hospital in Enugu, he passed away. 3. Major General Johnson Ngugi Ironsi, 1966. General Johnson, a major of the first military head of state of Nigeria, Thomas Ngugi Ironsi, was born in Umuahia, Abia State in 1924. Later in 1942, he enlisted in the Nigerian Army as a private. In 1964, he was promoted to Major General. On this list of all Nigerian presidents, he comes in at number 3. Ngugi Ironsi, a senior military officer from Nigeria, organized the military takeover of Azikiwe's government in 1966. Following the unrest caused by the 1966 coup, Ironsi took over as the country's leader. Tafawa Balewa was assassinated during this coup. He was also the first military president of Nigeria to be assassinated in a subsequent coup. Young soldiers who were dissatisfied with the prior coup carried out the coup. Azikiwe issued numerous decrees in his brief tenure. One of them, known as Constitution Suspension and Amendment Decree No. 1, suspended the majority of the Constitution's articles. But he never changed the parts of the Constitution that dealt with freedom of speech, conscience, and basic human rights. 4. General Yakubu Gowon, 1966 to 1975. General Gowon is the following president on the list of all Nigerian presidents. He was born in Kank, Plateau State, Nigeria, on October 19, 1934. After the counter-coup against Ya'Adua, he seized power by force. Gowon used genocidal methods against the Igbo people in the north not long after he gained control. This led to the killing more than 50,000 people. After hostilities reached a breaking point in 1967, the Nigerian Civil War began. The devastating effects of the Nigerian Civil War marred his administration. The war, also known as the Biafran War, resulted in the deaths of more than 100,000 soldiers and 1 million civilians. The Nigerian Civil War was ended by Gowon during his rule. He established the National Youth Service Corps and 12 new states, now having 37 orientation camps across the country. Additionally, he supported the creation of infrastructure across Nigeria and the first National Development Plan, both of which were modernization initiatives. 5. General Murtala Rufai Ramat Muhammad, 1975 to 1976. On November 8, 1938, Murtala Muhammad was born. In 1958, Murtala Muhammad enlisted in the Nigerian army. On the list of all Nigerian presidents, he comes in at number 5. General Murtala Muhammad, like the majority of Nigerian leaders of that time, seized power through a coup d'etat. On July 29, 1975, coup plotters overthrew Yakubu Gowon as he attended an OAU conference in far-off Kampala. Murtala Muhammad was then introduced as the new military leader. He served as Nigeria's head of the federal military government 1975 to 1976. He made a number of decisions in a total of just 200 days. These choices were hailed as some of the most significant ones made by previous governments, earning them the title of national hero. He is credited with putting into motion plans to relocate the capital from crowded Lagos to Abuja. In February 1976, he also visited 7 additional states. His decision to abandon the 1973 census that was weighted for the North and return to the 1963 count for official purposes was one of his first actions. He pursued a distinctive Africa-focused foreign policy. 6. Major General Olusegun Obasanjo, 1976 to 1979. Olusegun Obasanjo was born on March 5, 1937 in Abeokuta, Nigeria's Ogun State. On this list of all Nigerian presidents, he is one of just 2 leaders who held office twice. Despite his support for General Muhammad at the time, Obasanjo didn't really show much interest in the 1975 military coup. Obasanjo was subsequently named as Muhammad's deputy and was targeted for murder, but he managed to flee. Obasanjo reinstated army rule, as well as peace and security in the capital. A plan to reinstate civilian rule in Nigeria had been established during Obasanjo's tenure as president. Following through on this plan, Obasanjo helped draft the Nigerian constitution and held general elections in 1979. The transition of power to Nigeria's first elected civilian president was undoubtedly the greatest success. On October 1, 1979, he announced his resignation from politics and handed Shehu Shagari the reins of state. During Obasanjo's presidency, industrialization began to pick up again after it had been halted by the effects of the Nigerian Civil War. From February 1976 to October 1979, he served as president. 7. Alhaji Shehu Shagari, 1979 to 1983. Shigeri became the second Republic of Manchuria's president after defeating Chief Obafemi Awolowo in the 1979 presidential election. Prior to the beginning of the oil price decline in 1981, he also enjoyed a portion of Manchuria's oil boom. On this list of all Nigerian presidents, he comes in at number 7. During his administration, he prioritized housing, businesses, transportation, and agriculture, which resulted in the building of a nationwide network of roads. He also started a program to ensure increased use of agricultural machinery. The 6-3, 3-4 education policy was also introduced by his administration. However, his efforts in all of these areas would later be tarnished by claims of widespread corruption, and he became the target of a barrage of criticisms and insults. A famous incident known as Ghana Must Go involved the removal of approximately 2 million immigrants as the country's economy went into a depression. The majority of these immigrants were Ghanaians. 8. Major General Muhammadu Buhari, 1983 to 1985. Buhari was given his second lieutenant commission and made the platoon commander of the 2nd Infantry Battalion in Abeokuta, Nigeria, in January 1963 when he was 20 years old. General Buhari took part in the coup led by Lieutenant Colonel Murtala Muhammad to remove General Agiye Ironsi as head of state at the time. On this list of all Nigerian presidents, Buhari is the 8th president listed. The young man back then was renowned for his integrity and supported anti-corruption campaigns. Buhari is best known for his strict anti-corruption and anti-indiscipline campaign. He was referred to as a straight totalitarian. Under his rule, civil servants who arrived late for work had to perform jump squats, and soldiers made civilians form orderly lines at public transportation hubs. His most infamous initiative was the war against indiscipline. In order to prevent the accumulation of naira outside the banking system, he also changed the color of the currency. 9. General Ibrahim Babangida, 1985 to 1993. General Babangida, who was born on August 17, 1941, in Minna, Niger State, attended the prestigious government school Baida. Later in 1962, he enlisted in the Nigerian army and spent 31 years protecting his nation. Babangida won the support of obedient mid-level military personnel that he carefully placed in advantageous positions to advance his ambitions for power. On the list of all Nigerian presidents who have held office to date, he is the 9th. The introduction of the austerity measure known as the Structural Adjustment Program was the regime of Babangida's notable achievement. Among other things, this involved the agricultural sector being deregulated, price controls being removed, public enterprises being privatized, and the naira being devalued to increase export competitiveness. The government of Babangida also established the Federal Road Safety Corps, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, and the National Directorate of Employment, among other things. It also opened the way for private broadcasting. 10. Chief Ernest Adegunle Oladinde Shonekan, 1993 to 1993. Ernest Shonekan, who was born on May 9, 1936, served as Nigeria's interim leader from General Ibrahim Babangida until he resigned in 1993. He devised plans for the establishment of democracy and the removal of Nigerian troops from their peacekeeping duties in Liberia during the 3 months of his administration. During Shonekan's presidency, the offensive military decrees 2 and 54, which permitted the detention of people without an arrest warrant and the seizure of property on the whim of the government, were repealed. And he released a huge number of political prisoners. He was renowned for his demeanor and self-control. Shonekan was overthrown in a coup at the royal residence by General Sani Abacha, who was serving as defense secretary at the time, due to his obvious weaknesses in controlling the military. 11. General Sani Abacha, 1993 to 1998. Abacha was born and raised in Kano, Nigeria, a Borno Kanuri. Before being commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1963, he attended the Mons Officer Cadet School and the Nigerian Military Training College. His remarkable economic successes, which seem to bury some of the more contentious aspects of his administration, including corruption and violations of human rights, are what will define him politically. By the middle of 1997, Abacha had increased Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves from $494 million in 1993 to $9.6 billion. Additionally, Abacha paid off Nigeria's debt, which had decreased from $36 billion in 1993 to $27 billion in 1997. His administration created the final 6 states, bringing the total number of states in Nigeria to 36, and increased the number of local governments to 774. Kudirat, the spouse of Abiola, who won the election in June 1993, was brutally killed under his administration. 12. General Abdulsalami Abubakar, 1998 to 1999. Abubakar was sworn in as Nigeria's new leader on June 9, 1998, despite his initial reluctance to acknowledge and accept the position. Nigeria needed a leader like Abubakar at that time to prevent civil war because he was a non-violent individual who had Nigeria's best interests at heart. Abubakar promised a democratic transition within a year shortly after taking office and established the Independent National Electoral Commission. On May 29, 1999, when former military leader Obasanjo took the oath of office as a civilian president, he fulfilled this promise. The creation of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and subsequent handover of power to the civilian government is one of his greatest achievements. Abdulsalam Abubakar has received more than 12 honors and medals. 13. Chief Olusegun Matthew Okikiola Aremu Obasanjo, 1999 to 2007. After serving as the military ruler of Nigeria from 1976 to 1979, Olusegun Obasanjo made a significant political comeback by running for president of the People's Democratic Party, PDP. He then got into battle and won over Olu Falaya. When he was elected president of Nigeria in 1999, the country formally shifted to civilian rule. Obasanjo received 62% of the vote, and the day of his election has since been designated as Democracy Day, a national holiday. He is one of only 2 presidents to have held office twice in Nigeria, ranking as the 12th on this list of all Nigerian presidents. Traveling extensively to reassure prospective investors, particularly those in the USA and UK, that the oil sector was stable and that Nigeria was a just and democratic nation, Obasanjo spent the majority of his time. In 2003, Nigerians chose Obasanjo to serve a second term in office. He defeated Muhammadu Buhari, a former military pioneer, with 61% of the vote. When he left office in 2007, Nigeria's foreign reserves had grown from $2 billion in 1999 to $43 billion. During his second term as president, Obasanjo stabilized the democratic system. He departed to work on pension reform, created the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, and created the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. 14. President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, 2007 to 2010. Yar'Adua was naturally introduced to an aristocratic Fulani family in Katsina. During the First Republic, his father served as a minister for Lagos. Yar'Adua was chosen as the PDP's presidential candidate for the April 2007 election on the 16th and 17th of December 2006. Yar'Adua was declared the victor and sworn in as president of Nigeria following the contentious elections of 2007. Yar'Adua became ill while in office and was unable to carry out his presidential duties. Throughout his time as president, he battled pericarditis, an inflammation of the pericardium. This caused him to withdraw from public life, endangering the safety of the country. The most crucial policy framework for Yar'Adua is the 7-point agenda. He also started the Niger Delta Militants Amnesty Program. On this list of all Nigerian presidents, he is the 14th. 15. Goodluck Ebele Azikiwe Jonathan, 2010 to 2015. Jonathan was born in 1957 to a family of canoe dealers in what is now the state of Bayelsa. He graduated from the University of Port Harcourt with a BSc in zoology with second-class honors, an MSc in hydrobiology and fisheries biology, and a PhD in zoology. After Yar'Adua died and Jonathan was named acting president, his government's main priorities became electoral reform and fighting corruption. However, the majority of his government's efforts were diverted to the war against the Boko Haram insurgency. Even so, as his term in office was coming to an end, his administration was able to keep the insurgency under control. Jonathan received praise for largely not interfering with the nation's election outcomes. He was also credited with bringing the nation's dormant railway industry back to life during his rule. During his rule, telecommunications and internet penetration both increased. It was credited to his government for effectively managing the Ebola crisis and averting a worsening catastrophe. He was unable to achieve the same success for a second term in 2015 after running in and winning the presidential election in 2011. 16. President Muhammadu Buhari, 2015 to present. After running in the previous presidential election, Buhari, a former military leader who is now a Democrat, finally won the presidency in 2015. Buhari, who was sworn in on May 29, 2015, became Nigeria's second president who had previously served in the military. Before being chosen as the candidate of the APC, an alliance of several opposition parties, he had previously run for office 3 times and lost miserably each time. On this list of all Nigerian presidents, he is the last and current head of state. Despite a decline in oil prices, his administration also implemented the National Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, ERGP, to aid in economic recovery and pull the nation out of its worst recession in 29 years. Before we end this video, we'll like to know that here have been many presidents of Nigeria, representing a variety of ethnic groups, each with their own character, strength, and unique personality. There is no standard way to describe the best leadership Nigeria has ever experienced, but you can gauge the impact each administration had on the populace while it was in power. This list of all Nigerian presidents has been able to demonstrate both the positive and negative aspects of the previous regimes in Nigeria. Evidently, every government in power over the years has experienced ups and downs. This list of presidents and their accomplishments allows us to understand what an ideal leader entails. This demonstrates what has been done thus far to advance Nigeria and what more could be done to improve it. Thank you, and that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to see more videos like this.